What is the purpose of success? Is it about how much money you accumulate through your life, or is it about the impact and the legacy you leave behind? These are questions that I've fought with and I deal with, but as the older I get, I realize sometimes the later, right? It's the impact that you make around others, and sometimes the impact you might have to make away from home. My next guest actually moved, well, he did a volunteership from the great state of New York all the way to Rwanda, Africa. So today I'm very, very excited to welcome Alex Sherman on the show and to talk about his experience. Welcome to the Think Global podcast, Alex.
Hey, thank you, Yusuf. It's a pleasure, man.
Think global, that's our call. Azomco leading, standing tall, made in Rwanda. Big ballers play, getting it in, paving the way. Think global, that's our call. Azomco leading.
So we have a segment on our show that all the guests come on do, right? It's called the world call. That's where we give our guests 10 seconds to name off some of the countries that you visited. So right now we're gonna put Alex on the world call. That's go.
All right. Morocco, Rwanda, Tanzania, South Africa, um, Colombia, Ecuador, France, Spain, Iceland, Guatemala.
All right,
Uh,
all right. I think
yeah.
10 seconds is up. I think 10 seconds is up, man. Congratulations on that travel. Very, very well diverse. Welcome again to the podcast. I believe me and you share obviously it's a lot of commonalities. We met in Rwanda, but it was really for the love of the game of basketball. When was it and how was it that you first fell in love with basketball?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'd say I fell in love with basketball probably around late elementary school. It's funny, baseball was actually my first love. Like I was, big Barry Bonds and A-Rod fan, but I really got into basketball when one of my best friends, his father actually convinced me to play for his CYO basketball team. Because he basically made the case that, my agility while playing shortstop could translate well onto the court as a guard. So around that time, he handed me like the Steve Nash. I think it was like the 20-minute workout DVD. So he gave me that as well as a copy of like the More Than the Game documentary
Uh-huh.
about LeBron and his Vincent St. Mary's basketball team. So that's what kind of really got me into basketball. I started playing more um, around that time, like 2011, 2012. You also had the emergence of Derrick Rose, like really come onto the scene, for the Bulls, youngest NBA MVP in history. And then, you had that, you had Linsanity as someone from New York. That was remarkable. And then I'd say when Steph Curry also dropped 54 against the Knicks, that was to me a really eye opener to see how, an undersized guard could really like leave an impact on the floor and also it's just changed the game from like the spacing standpoint, how offenses, carried out their strategies and stuff. So that's kind of how I got into the game. I played for my middle school, starting point guard from high school, played a little bit of intramural basketball in college. Um, but at McGill, actually, it's funny, we can get into it in a bit. A friend of mine named Sammy, who actually used to play for the Moroccan national basketball team,
Hmm.
he was the one who kind of introduced me to kind of like the expansion of the game overseas in Africa, talking about the Basketball Africa League. So he was kind of like the one who opened my eye to that. And he also facilitated an introduction where I got to speak with Usher Kumugisha,
Hmm.
who was the one of the color commentators at the BAL.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
I know that, sure.
so yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell how I got into the game.
You know what's crazy, bro, is I growing up in Seattle, like I obviously my father played in the NBA for 10 seasons. So
Right.
basketball was like within my veins. It was something that I was always gonna do. But I also grew up playing American football and also baseball. But I was really, really, really good at baseball. I mean, I was very, you mentioned versatility, being versatile. I was a switch hitter. I could play infield. I could play outfield. The only thing that I couldn't really do was be a pitcher. But even that put me
Mhm.
at catcher, and I was able to throw people out at second base. So baseball, in retrospect, might have been the best thing because nowadays the baseball contracts are absolutely insane.
No, they're bonkers too. And I see you're rocking the Mariners cap.
Mariners,
I mean,
yes.
Anthony
Griffey,
Martinez, A-Rod,
Randy
Randy.
Johnson, Ken Griffey Jr. Oh man, that's how I grew up, man. That and the Sonics. Well, we don't talk about that. Gary Payton and Sean Kemp. They took our songs away and put it to Oklahoma City.
Yep,
Yeah. So
exactly.
in 2023, you left New York, right? And you went to Rwanda, Africa. Do you want to talk about why did you choose to volunteer with the organization that it was involved in Rwanda?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I first came across Shooting Touch, I think back in like 2022. I actually like candidly, I just reached out to one of their fellows who took part in their program a while back. I reached out to him, did a little interview with him, and I published an article about his experience. And yeah, I mean, it really captivated me just from the onset as someone who always loved sports, but also, this idea of using sport as a tool to promote health, to promote, community empowerment, um, so, social equity. Those are all things that really piqued my interest, and I wanted to kind of learn more how sport could really enable those outcomes, like in a
Mhm,
tangible way.
mhm,
So yeah, when the fellowship, came around, it was kind of like the perfect convergence of a lot of my interests, like
mhm.
sports, like global development, storytelling. Um, I think also my parents may have had an influence on me in a
Okay.
sense where I think on one hand, like my dad, he grew up playing baseball. He's also a baseball author. He's published like non-baseball books. So
Really?
there's that love for sports and writing. My
Hold
mom,
on,
on
real
the
quick. What about these books, or what are the books about? Is it historical or just like what is it?
Yeah, he's written quite a few autobiographies in collaboration with former athletes. So like he's written books with Mookie Wilson from the Mets, Davey Johnson, former manager of the Mets. He's written a few Red Sox related books as well. Uh, one about Glenn Burke, who was the first openly gay baseball player as
Hmm.
well, played for the Dodgers.
Hmm.
Yeah, so quite a bit.
That's amazing, man. That's cool.
He's killing it.
Yeah, that's cool.
So. So I'd say having him as a father, my mother's like an anthropology professor
Okay.
at a CUNY school here in New York.
Uh-huh.
So I think kind of blending elements from sports and anthropology and understanding um, how sport can be applied in international context. That really fascinated me. And I think Rwanda as well, like Rwanda itself as a country,
Yeah.
really sparked my interest.
Okay. So you didn't know anything about Rwanda, well, before you had left, right? I mean,
I,
obviously there's historical stuff, the 1994 genocide in there, but everything else is like you pretty much was. So what was your expectations before you left?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like as you mentioned, like there's some things I knew about Rwanda before leaving. Political science was one of my minors at McGill, where I went to school in college. So I had some understanding of the conflicts, what happened in 1994. I did some reading, like watching documentaries, reading some books, but I guess yeah, there's only so much you can do,
Exactly.
to prepare yourself. Just once you actually get on that plane and you land and it's like, all right, like, here we go.
Let's go.
So,
Let's go. Talk to us about that moment when you did your little research, you spoke to people, you were trying to figure out what to expect and everything, and then you landed in Kigali, and I'm sure how was the first week of getting acclimated to Rwanda, and what was it like on the ground?
yeah, I mean, I remember, landing in Rwanda. It was kind of like an overcast day. Um, I was picked up from the airport from, Sam Waterstone, who was a former, director of communications at Shooting Touch. Yeah, it was like a very, like, I think the first thing you kind of feel is like the smokiness in the air.
Uh-huh.
You kind of get used to it when you're living in Rwanda for a little bit. So I know some locals are sometimes surprised when you mention that,
What do
but
you mean by
yeah,
smokiness? What do you mean?
I think there's like I'm surprised there's like a smokiness. I don't know if it's like like people burning, if it's like maybe like for agricultural reasons
Really?
or whatnot, but at least in my
I tell
experience,
you right
maybe I've
here,
had
brother. I live in Doha, Qatar, and about 20 kilometers, 25 kilometers away from me,
Yeah,
there's LNG gas being burnt 24/7. So the pollution here is very, very hazy, and it's a lot of like, I definitely feel that here. But when I'm in Rwanda, I feel like very, very clear, open skies, fresh, clear air. And yeah, I don't, maybe it's like, I mean, occasionally, like when you're around, you might smell something being burnt, like barbecue or, something like that, or even,
right,
but
right.
that was the first time I actually hear somebody said that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just my initial impression. You're right. I mean, for the majority of the country, it's just clean air. You're, lots of trees. You're out in nature and stuff. Um, but yeah, you land. First thing you notice, when you're driving, in the car, the streets are very clean. You see people. You got the workers on the side of the streets, like, picking up. It's very clean. I mean, I live in New York, and I live in a relatively clean neighborhood, but really,
Hmm.
like, New York City, it just pales in comparison. I'd say most cities in the U.S. just don't compare to the
I'll be
cleanliness.
honest with you,
Yeah.
man. Like, and as like yourself, I've traveled quite a bit. I've been to Japan recently. I heard Singapore, and those obviously are very, very clean cities. But after that, I would have to say Rwanda. I mean, there's no comparison to New York City or London or any, places like this where they call quote unquote the develop or first world country. It's like they're way far behind in the cleanliness that I've experienced. The roads are clean. Even when you go down into town, it's still, you don't see rubbish around, you don't see trash, it's not piled up. So man, they're doing a really, really good job in terms of cleanliness. So yeah, it's a great place to visit, especially as somebody had before when you first went to Rwanda. Was that the first time you've been to Africa?
Not the first time. I'd say it was the first time in sub-Saharan Africa. I have family in Morocco,
Oh, okay.
up in Tangier, so I've been up there quite a few times. But yeah, I'd say, first time. Well, I'd also been to Senegal,
Okay.
as well, back in like 2022. But so I've had like a little experience traveling in Africa, but yeah, that was about it.
Okay. No, fair enough, man. So tell us more about the organization you're working with. I've known Shooting Touch for, well, my time in Rwanda. Obviously, we have a basketball club there, and they are very prominent in the basketball space. Tell us a little bit about, they have operations in Boston, but then this outreach program is in Kigali, or not just Kigali, in Rwanda, I would just say, because they work
Mhm.
in more of the rural areas. Um, like what was the fellowship about and what type of events that you guys were doing? And then like let's talk a little bit about the demographics because this is not your usual demographics, is it?
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I guess to give some context, like Shooting Touch was founded, I believe, back in 2007. It was co-founded by Justin and Lisa Kittredge. And you're right, they're headquartered in Boston, and they do programming work in Boston as well for inner city youth. But they've had a wing in Rwanda for a while. Really the idea is to use basketball as a way to bridge health and opportunity gaps for women and youth in Eastern Rwanda, particularly, in the district of Kayonza for the most part. Bugesera a little bit, but yeah, Kayonza especially. So yeah, they operate across, I think at this point, 7 or 8 basketball courts across 6 villages. In terms of the numbers, I mean, that's over, I think, 1,000 youth, age 10 to 18, close to 2,000 women as well. So, women as young as 18, but also as old as, 65, 70. Like you'll see like women wearing their katenges
Hmm.
coming out to the court, in the like traditional dresses and all that. So yeah, I mean, there's on one hand, there's like the basketball programming. But then, you can also kind of view them as like community hubs in a sense where, you know, n- it's not just about basketball and the training, but it's also an opportunity to learn more about public health and gender equity
Bring
initiatives.
people together, right? You mentioned community hub,
Yeah.
just having, there's so much power in just the people coming together for, whether what doesn't matter really what the cause is, but the fact
Hmm.
that people are coming together, people have, good intentions and a more lively spirit, and then they can, like you said, interact and learn things. It's a beautiful thing. So you mentioned the kids, you mentioned elderly women, you mentioned different people from community. What was your like most memorable experience? You probably had like a, ah man, this was something I'll never forget. Was it a time that you saw something, or you guys participated in something, or some kind of event or program where it was very memorable to for you?
Honestly, there are too many to just call out one. I mean, I think just from the get-go, just the introductions, having the Rwandan coaches introduce the fellows. So actually, I was one of three fellows just for visibility. I went along with these two friends, these two girls, Lucy and Maddie. I was handling like the marketing side. I was basically working in a marketing capacity. They were working on more so like the basketball ops and organizational ops side of things. But yeah, I mean, in terms of what stood out, I mean, those memories, just I think interacting with with beneficiaries, having them like come up to you, like trying to, talk in English, and then on the other side, like trying to share a few words in Kinyarwanda, and that was always, fascinating, like trying to, basically introduce myself in Kinyarwanda, throwing out little basics, like for example, like they love whenever I say like Missy Fresh. Which is kind of like a slang way of saying like, hey, like we're chilling, like we're
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like yeah, that'd always like get a kick out. They'd always get a kick out of that.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'd say in a general sense, just hanging out. But as you know, like basketball is a common language. It really doesn't matter where you come from. You can tell a lot tell a lot about a person by the way they play, how they pass, how they move, what kind of effort they show,
Hmm.
uh, how bad they want something,
For sure.
their ability to have fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just on a fundamental level, that was just an incredible highlight,
Wow.
to be playing basketball, to help out with the programming, in a distant country in
Yeah.
East Africa, and kind of just immerse yourself into that. It's very special. So
So how much time in all were you there? Was it a full year or just under, or is it?
yeah, I was there for about 7 or 8 months.
Okay.
So basically, it's like a structured like 8 month program that they run every single year. So every year they have a new cohort of three fellows that come over.
For sure, for sure. And were you fortunate enough to see the NBA Africa, the BAL, and the BK Arena?
Yeah, and BK Arena for sure. When
Talk about
went out
that,
to
man,
see.
because that's something like, it's very unique to have, the state-of-the-art arena there, 10,000 fans, and you have a proper, basketball environment on the continent. So, it's like an NBA, setup, and, we're in Kigali, Rwanda, So what did that like mean to you? Like, when you tell people back home back in the States, like, hey, man, I'm at the NBA Africa game.
Yeah, I think what stood out to me was just the infrastructure, right? You go into BK Arena, you walk in, kind of get that NBA feel from like the audio standpoint, the production value, and the product on the court is very impressive too. I mean, I think it's interesting to analyze like the style of the game. It's a little
Hmm.
bit different from what you see in the US. Like I'd say African basketball is it's very athletic.
Hmm.
There's a lot of physicality. The shooting is not quite as good yet,
For sure.
though there are exceptions. I mean, you got some shooters, on the Senegal team,
Yeah, for
uh,
sure.
as well. But yeah, I would encourage anyone, like any basketball fan, to come out to Rwanda or just to kind of see the BAL in action. It's a really special product, and I'd say beyond basketball too. It's just it's like a Pan-African display,
Hmm.
sharing different cultures too. So
And it's really,
yeah,
really inspiring the next generation. I mean, like, I don't think we're just in Rwanda, but just all around Africa now with the advent of the BAL in Senegal and Morocco and South Africa. Now if you're a kid who's growing up in, say, Kigali or Dakar, And you watch YouTube videos of Stephen Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant. It's a dream, it's like very far. They're in the United States or in the big leagues in the NBA. But now when you see like the NBA come to your home city and you see somebody from your neighborhood or your cousin or somebody like that who's actually playing on the court, it just makes it like more real and more tangible. So now, like you go to Kigali, like everybody wants to play basketball. It's like soccer or football. It's like secondary now, whereas
Hmm.
basketball is like it's more ambitious for the younger kids to dream to become a professional basketball player.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think it's one thing to be a fan of basketball. Like if you're a kid living in Rwanda, like it's one thing to be a fan and to watch, like NBA games or highlights of, your Steph Curry's, all that. But it is cool to also be able to see it in action, firsthand and to have, also like local stars to watch and to look up to as well. So I
For
think that's
sure.
pretty important.
For sure. So that's amazing. Congratulations, by the way. It's well commendable that you went over, you did that. So now you're back in the U.S. How has that experience kind of like impacted your life? Because one thing that I find difficult, Alex, and maybe you can testify to this, is like when you're having all these overseas experiences, you're in Africa, you're in all over the world, then you come back to the US and some things are a little bit, peculiar. I find it a little bit hard to, I don't know, to like, not really relate like I'm better than, but some of the experiences that you have had now, it's hard to really talk about. But you have these experiences that impacted you positively, and it made you a better person. Do you kind of feel the same? And like, how has that improved your livelihood?
Yeah, I think yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think it depends on the person, like it depends on, like after that experience, like you come home and like you want to share with people. And I'd say for the most part, like, people are interested, like they wanted to learn, like they ask questions. But I think in terms of being able to, empathize with someone, I think it's a little hard if you haven't done an experience like that.
Exactly.
And it's not for everyone, I mean, I think to kind of to leave your country, you have to have like a certain sense of self, self-assuredness to be able to, handle different things. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're out in Rwanda, you gotta figure out, like getting around,
Yeah.
getting across language barriers.
Everything's different. Everything's different, man. Everything's different. Yeah.
Yeah, even in terms of like buying, for shooting touch, like buying, merch, like buying t-shirts and stuff. It's a lot more informal. You've got it's like a different payment system.
Yeah.
You got the Momo and everything.
Yeah.
So there's an adjustment. I think you just have to be someone who's willing to embrace that and actually, have fun with it.
For sure.
So so yeah, it
So,
is.
but
Yeah.
you're back in the States now. So, like, has it opened up doors or connections? Like, do you talk about, your experience like with others, or like, how has it impacted you?
Yeah, I mean, on a personal level, it's there's really not a day that goes by where I don't think about my experience in Rwanda. Like even if it's just for like 10 seconds, it always comes back to me. I have a photo framed of me with some of my friends and some of the beneficiaries from my time out there as well. Um, and yeah, I think in terms of opening doors, it's definitely opened me up to um, definitely I'd love to work in some capacity. Um, you know, there's a lot of cool stuff going around in emerging markets, like whether that's sports or in finance. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. Currently I work for a boutique PR firm in New York City called Monteith and Company. We're on more so like on the financial services tech side of things, but you know, sports, could potentially be a lane that opens up down the line. But yeah, I'd say more so just from just like a worldview standpoint and having the confidence that I've done a program like that. I think that's been like a big takeaway, to to know that I've been able to take that risk. And um, yeah, I'd say from that standpoint, it's important.
Amazing, amazing, and congratulations, man. Again, that's very, very commendable. So you mentioned the new job and the new position you're having. Is there any other projects you're working on, or are you trying to get involved more with basketball, or is there anything else you're taking on at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty busy with my day job. One of my goals for this year actually on the side is to build like a little writing project focusing on sports nonprofits. You've got like the sport and development sector as a whole that's starting to grow, where you've got, more an increasing amount of organizations, like Shooting Touch that are using different sports to enable certain social outcomes.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'd say from like a media production standpoint, that's what I'm focusing on.
Cool, cool, cool. Are you did you share like some of your photos and videos like are you on YouTube or LinkedIn or something like that? Can people see like, they might ha have heard this podcast now and might see, hey man, that's something that's very interesting. Maybe they want to see something more.
Oh yeah, 100%. Happy to share it. I've got, LinkedIn, my Instagram, so definitely be happy to share.
For sure, for sure. So maybe I'll link it in the description when this video gets released. Anything else? Last words? I know the journey continues, and there's so much out there. That's why one of the main objectives of this podcast is to encourage people to travel more and take on these experiences like you just done. So maybe some words of encouragement for somebody who's on the fence and who's borderline thinking, can I do this, or this something that I want to do, or maybe some words of encouragement for that person.
Yeah, totally. I think if it definitely sounds cliche. Um, but I think there's a certain value when it comes to kind of embracing the unknown and jumping into a new experience. I remember when I was in the process um of applying for this fellowship. Like I actually meditated for like 20 minutes. Like I was basically visualizing myself. I'm like, all right, like if I were to actually get this opportunity, what would it look like? What would I want to get out of it?
Mhm.
Uh, and yeah, in that process, I made the decision that, if I get accepted, I'll go for it. So yeah, that's what advice I would have. Um, but yeah, I'd say additionally, I'd highly recommend anyone to check out Shooting Touch, on their website, their Instagram. A lot of cool work being done out there. Also, yeah, I forgot to mention, I mean, among the work that we did, like we collaborated with the BAL for a couple of visits as well. We also had an event in Yamarama with Grant Williams of the
Yeah, I
Charlotte
was there
Hornets.
at the U.S. Embassy when I met those guys. When Grant Williams came, and yeah, it was I think that was a secondary event to the main event. Yeah,
Exactly, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, getting to meet Grant Williams. We had people from the University of Tennessee Evolve Leaders program come through as
Mhm.
well. Um, yeah, a lot of cool stuff going on. There was a big uh and like a gender-based violence tournament
Mhm.
um that we implemented in Rokara as well. So yeah, anyway, lots of cool stuff that I took part in, lots of cool stuff that will be happening next year as well. So I'd highly recommend anyone to jump on the Instagram.
For sure, I'll make sure to collaborate and tag them. Shooting Touch, shout out to Shooting Touch. You guys are doing a fantastic job. Um, Last question: when will you be back in Rwanda? Any plans?
Man, honestly, I hope within the next 2 years. I was actually briefly back in Rwanda last year actually. It was brief though. It was only a week. So I just couldn't resist. I had to come back, for the BAL and to see a couple of friends. But I would say if not this year, then definitely next year.
Cool, 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 cool. Well, it was a pleasure having you, man. I really appreciate your insight, and again, congratulations on that fruitful experience. May it continue to impact you and open up doors and connections. Shout out to you. Shout out to Shoot in Touch, and for those of you guys who made it through this interview and haven't considered traveling to Rwanda, why don't you go ahead and put that on your bucket list? It's a beautiful country, as Alex has described and elaborated. So it's definitely something that we would recommend. Okay, brother, I'll let you get back to the cold weather in New York City.
Yeah,
Yeah, best of luck with you. We'll keep in touch.
sounds good, man. Always a pleasure.
Likewise. Take care.